This is Smithy.tv.
Reporting for Katie Chats here at Smithy TV in downtown Toronto with writer, editor, and mentor James Strecker. How does it feel to have written and edited all of these books?
It feels exhausting, Katie. No, it's a lot of work, and it's been a lot of work, and I'm in the middle of more insanity. So.
Absolutely, great.
I think I have 4 poetry manuscripts at home, and a creativity book I'm doing, which is breaking into 2 books, and a book for writers, which I'm still hustling around.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So you're a very busy man.
I am.
Awesome.
But I do smell the roses too.
Great. And tell me a little bit about this first book, Chasing the Muse, Poems on Creators. Who are these creators?
Oh my. Well, I have Neil Young in there for one. When Johnny Cash died, I wrote a poem about him. Favorite mezzo-soprano Magdalena Kozina, Ali Akbar Khan, who's a road player, who is my favorite musician. All sorts of people, and a lot. Like I broke it into half and half Canadian and other parts of the world as well.
Awesome, great. And here we have Bones to Bury.
Yeah.
That sounds very, very dark to me. Tell me a little bit about what we can find in here.
Well, it's my first book from 100 years ago. It's quite old now. The paper's very brittle. All sorts of things. Poems. A couple people died, which inspired me to start writing, actually. But actually, that's where I started writing about creative people, too, in a poetic form. And I did several, maybe 7 sculptures, which illustrate the book, photographs of them, welded metal or bent metal, and there's one of Glenn Gould in there, which the National Library has posted on their site as well.
See if I can pull that up in here. Do you want to find that?
Sure thing.
So we can do a quick
I hope this is
show and tell.
A fruitful exploration of the contents in order to...
Oh, there we go.
We did. We found it.
Yeah, here we go. So here we have the memorial to Glenn Gould.
Yeah, and it's about this high.
Okay.
It's
Great.
That was fun to do. I need to do more art, but what can you do?
Okay, and then here we have Beside the Hemlock Garden.
Yeah.
Now, I really love the artwork on the cover of this book. Tell me a little bit about the artist and the inspiration behind the work.
Well, the artist is Sue Coe from Britain, now in the United States, and a major illustrator there. And Sue is an animal rights person, as I am. And I sent her this depressing manuscript, and Sue will go to slaughterhouses and things like that. Like that's where that's where she gets some ideas. So she's very serious, dedicated, and honest about it. And so she said, "I'll create a painting that reflects the poetry." And well, I should tell you, some of the poems are reprints, but I did a demonstration in London. In Trafalgar and one in Earl's Court once, and I think they said there were 20,000 people there, and I was told after that people were crying and leaving my reading. I'm used to that for other reasons, but this time I was reaching them.
And here we have More Than a Blues Singer, Jackie Washington. Who is Jackie Washington?
Well, Jackie was a Hamilton legend institution, and he died a few years ago. And, I don't know. I used to manage folk singers 100 years ago again. And so, we crossed paths, but I said to him one day, why don't we do a biography? And so, yeah, we did.
Great.
And it's his words, though. I wanted, because he was a raconteur, and it's a very interesting read that way.
Right. And now, along the same lines...
Oh, I have a story for this.
We have Black. Now, tell me, I love this, this is a What kind of artwork is that? Is that a drawing or
I did it with pen and ink.
with pen and ink? Okay, great. So what is this and what is it all about?
This shall be revealed. This 90 years ago, I had a collection of poetry, and half of them were about ballet dancers. So I thought, well, why don't I ask my favorite Canadian artist? You know, like, who am I? But Harold Town was doing a talk, and I went to see him afterwards, and I said, I have these ballet poems. Would you illustrate them, sir? And he said, send me the poems. So, well, we became friends. I used to drop off over to his place a lot, and talking about the illustrations, the ballet illustrations, which became a book, Pas de Vin. But then we always talked about jazz, among other things. Talked about everything. But I said, why don't we do a book on black musicians? So, okay, write the poems. Okay, so I wrote the poems. And then what happens then? Yeah, so I thought I have to get somebody to do the introduction. So I said, well, I'll go to Oscar Peterson because some of them are jazz poems. So I sat down with Oscar, and Oscar said, well, I'll write an introduction to the jazz poems, but I don't do reggae and blues and things like that. I said, okay, well, we'll divide the book in half. So then B.B. King was playing Toronto when, I think at Harbourfront. No, not Harbourfront, Ontario Place. So I said, okay, I got to see him between shows, and I said, I need an introduction. And this was really cool. B.B. sat there, he opened up the ballet book, and he's reading me my poetry. I can't believe it. This is cool. And then he said, and then he looked at the poems on the other musicians in the black book, and he said, well, if I was going to write a foreword to this book, this is what I'd say. And a flash hit me. Strecker, grab a pen, write this down. So I did.
Great.
Yeah, so I had Oscar did the foreword for the jazz, and B.B. did the other one.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And here we have this, I believe, which you edited. Yeah. What can we find inside this lovely book?
This lovely book contains poetry by writers, poets in the Golden Horseshoe around the end of Lake Ontario.
And this was something that you sought out to do to highlight poets in that area? Yeah,
it was a cause. I think I've done about 5 or 6, 7 books of Golden Horseshoe writers, because a lot of the best writing is unknown. You know, so just it's something I conned a publisher into publishing 3 once, and then I said, everybody's making a mess of these books, so I'll become a publisher. But it was nice. I think I got about 100 writers into print.
Wonderful.
And it was a cause. It was, again, another cause. So.
Wonderful. Well, good for you. Congratulations.
And same with that book, too.
Okay, so this one was a cause as well. I see an anthology of Southern Ontario poets and illustrators. So how do you go about selecting the poets that you publish in the book?
Well, it's a matter of finding people who have something to say, basically. People can write, do a style, but they have to have something that they've committed themselves in expressing something of concern. And so you look for good writers who have issues to express to the world.
Absolutely. Okay, and here we have Out of Incest and Abuse, a Book of Hope. And now you mentored this young lady while she was going through very difficult things in her life. What was that experience like?
Well, first of all, she'll be most flattered to be called a young lady. I get emails from her complaining about aging. But when she was 11 years old, she was sexually abused by her father, who ultimately killed himself many years later. But she called me up and she said, I want you to write my book, and that's the last thing you want to hear when you've got a lot of your own projects. But I said I would mentor her, and we drank a lot of espresso, and we went through it, and it's not a pleasant subject, okay? It's a very difficult subject, but one thing I believe is that we have to make people aware, because we live in sometimes our culture is asinine, we deny stuff. We like the superficial. So it's important to have people aware of things, because otherwise people feel very alone. And sexually abused people feel very alone.
And do you think that in writing this book that helped her work through some of the things that she experienced in kind of a therapeutic way?
Yeah, partly. But partly, she was angry as well because she'd been going to a psychiatrist many years ago for about 7 years, and sexual abuse never got discussed. And so she said, pretty well, damn it, I'm going to tell people. Now, every year, the book's on the reading list at McMaster University, and every year 500 people read the thing. You know, and every time she does a talk, there's a lineup at the end of the class, and she's there talking to individuals. You know, so yeah.
And here we have a journey out of bullying, which is also a very serious subject matter. How did you get involved in this project?
The lady in question, the author, I mentored her paragraph by paragraph. It was quite an exercise, but her son was bullied and the family was devastated. And so I said, the usual thing, my usual reaction, it is no more, I hope, is, hey, this should be a book. And but it became a book, and you know, it's a useful book. It tells people how, it's not poetry, it's a guidebook how to survive as a bullied child, as a parent of a bullied child.
Great.
Yeah.
And here we have Dead Leaves and Other Flowers.
Very sad story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the story. What's at the heart of it?
Well, I published the poet in an anthology, one of the two we just looked at, and then he said, I have a whole collection of poetry. And I said, well, shoot it over to me and I'll read it over, and we'll see what happens from there. And we had, the book, the anthology he was in, we had a launch, and we had readings by the poets, and a day or two later, I think, he didn't show up. And the next day, I was wondering, where is he? Because he's a dedicated writer. And the next day, I found out he killed himself. And then his parents said, we really want this book published. So we got it published.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's very sad.
It was sad. It's sad. You know, it's not an easy book to read either. But a lot of the cause books are not easy books to read. And you know, it's not entertainment, it's truth.
And here we have Shackles and Silence, Poems from Prison, which I think is tremendously interesting. What are some of the insights into prison life that we can see in this book?
Learn to survive. Keep your spirit, you know. Try to maintain your decency. And also, though, I'll tell you about the author in a minute, but he always says, like, these are people inside. They messed up in some way. That does not stop them from being human beings. A lot of them are very people who can contribute a great deal. And the reason I had that was that I was teaching in a college, and one of the instructors said, would you look at a manuscript? And then I said, sure. And John, the author, sent it to me. It was about, you know, yay thick. And I thought, whoa, what do I do with this? But there was a good book in there. So that was the previous book. And then we got into this syndrome of, hey, let's do another book. And John had many things to say. And then when he got out, and he's working with convicts now, ex-convicts and convicts, and we said, well, let's do a third book as well. And it's a very sad story. You know, it was murder, and it was a sad story. He killed someone he loved. Let's put it like that. And it was just because he was drunk. You know, so it's sad. But much good came out of it as a result.
Absolutely. And here we have Sheridan, The Cutting Edge in Crafts by James Strecker. What can we expect to find out about the cutting edge in crafts?
Well, Katie, I would hope that people would learn a great deal about crafts and about creativity, because the purpose was I was teaching at Sheridan College and affiliated with the School of Crafts and Design, which produced many noteworthy creative people in crafts, and many major award winners, and who became teachers and all that. So I thought, why don't we have a celebration of that fact, that these people come out of this place? And so it ended up with about 20, 40 people featured with their work, a picture, a statement, and a critique, and then a number of issues about creativity and crafts as well.
And are there any crafts in here in particular that really stand out for you that maybe you want to highlight?
All of them. There's one, Laura Donifer, she did a piece, she was raped. You know, she starts her account, when I was raped. I thought, okay. But you see, creativity allows, again, as I said, an expression of the fundamentals of life. You know, and I think we have to remember that. Diversion is certainly important. We all need it. But we have to remember that there's stuff that has to be addressed, and art is one way of doing that.
Absolutely.
It always has been that way, you know.
And what types of projects are you going to focus on in the future? I know you're so diverse and prolific, but is there anything in particular that you want to explore?
Oh yeah, well, this major creativity book has. I was fighting that for so long. I was saying, you're going to be this book, and then I looked and I said, I've got 2,000 pages of interviews, you know, and this is such good stuff, and I want to get it all in, you know. I'm trying to squeeze it in. And the book is getting to be about 1,000 pages long. And I'm thinking, this is not going to work, guys. And so I said, okay, have some reality, which I don't like. I don't like reality. And so it's now become 2 other books. One is going to handle be a quotation book, but one's going to be a narrative. Because I work, you see, because I come at the creativity as someone trained, as well as university, but I'm trained to do these depth psychology workshops, which treat a human life as a work of art with inherent potential, and you have to find a means of accessing that potential, and then the aspects of your life intermingle and they work together, you know, to help you develop. Okay. I also do something called focusing, which teaches you basically how to be aware of what's cooking inside, you know. And these are both depth psychology. The intensive journal, the first one, is created by Ira Progoff, who worked with Carl Jung many years ago, and the second, focusing, by Eugene Gendlin. And they're wonderful methods. But so that ties into everything I do.
And where is the best place to find out more information on you and all of the work that you're doing online?
Go to my websites. Read my reviews at James Strecker Reviews the Arts, but there's not much reviewing going on right now because I've become a hermit. And occasionally they bring me food and water, and I take the phone every time it rings. I hurl it at the wall in great disdain for this intrusion. And and I've got an email, and I've got a website, www.jamesstrecker.com. And I expect to do a lot more online, but I'm really pulling back to do all this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to see you again, and congratulations on everything, and I look forward to seeing your upcoming work.
And I look forward to seeing you in your next role.
Thank you.
Roles, actually. First, may I say what it is?
Sure, absolutely.
As a goth.
Yes.
Yeah, Katie the Goth.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a dark and stormy night when Katie the Goth rode into town. And your stand-up.
Oh, thank you.
I look forward to that. I love the first one you did.
Oh.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, James.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Katie Ullman reporting for Katie Chats here at Smithy TV in downtown Toronto.